last question you asked was, what's the process from seeing or learning a recipe from another chef and making it my own and incorporating it into a menu? How and where do I write it down, or do I just remember it? So there's a point where, Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule kind of kicks into effect, where it's like you eventually get to a point where the recipes aren't as important as the principles. Mm-hmm. That being said, I still find, even to this day, that the first time that I'm making a recipe always takes twice as long as I think, as it will after I do it, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times. The first time I made brown butter, it takes twice as long as it will eventually. So when you think about that, if you think, the first time I made this coconut braised chicken recipe, it took me 108 minutes, right? You can reasonably expect that the second or third, in a perfect world, ideally on the second time that you make it, but that's after I think you get to a certain point in your cooking skill. But you can reasonably expect that it's going to take about 54 minutes, exactly half, once you get good at it.
Yeah.
And that is proven true so many times for me that it's just you can't. I mean, that's very important, because if someone is talking to you and giving you instructions of, you need to clean the crab, or you need to pickle these onions, or you need to whatever, and they say it's going to take you about 15 minutes, you need to reasonably expect it's going to take you 30 minutes the first time you do it. And it might sound completely ridiculous, but if you've never used that vinegar before, you need to go downstairs and look for it and not find it and go ask someone, hey, do you know where this vinegar is? And then they need to come that's all part of that process. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for you, it might be like, you need to find, you're doing this Indian recipe, and you need to find asafoetida and where that is and how to source that and where, so all of those little nuances work their way into the first time you do something. It always takes twice as long.
Totally.
So that's more or less how I think about the time part. There's a great quote from a Noma documentary or a Rene Redzepi video or something like that, where he talks about the reason that he created the Nordic Food Lab and why he was such a big proponent in research. A menu is like a sentence or like a paragraph or like a novel. The techniques and the ingredients and all the stuff that you have to work with are the letters that you have available to write this story. So by learning new recipes and new techniques and new ways to do things, you're effectively learning new letters to your alphabet. If you can enunciate your words and letters in certain ways, that lends itself to something else. But that's the closest thing that I've thought to myself as far as what's the point in learning new techniques and new recipes, and what's the value that comes from this experience. So that's what I'm more or less trying to think of, is speak a certain language or get a new you can get a new word. Let's think about it like that. So you can get a new word that you really, really like, and you think it's really cool the way that guy used it. But when you go to the bar with your friends next weekend and you use that word in a joke that's been in your head, that's when it truly becomes, I would argue, your own. Because, we're to a point now where it's not happening the way that it used to be, with people being able to claim certain ideas or techniques or whatever. Because, I mean, you could argue it's been happening forever, that nothing is really new. But even now, it is so hard to create something that's truly new, truly revolutionary. But when I see something and I want to try it, sometimes, if you're getting frustrated with that, sometimes it's smart to just stop consuming. Stop consuming other people's stuff, stop reading cookbooks, and just go to the market and take a bite out of something raw and be like, what do I want to eat this with? Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really powerful. As opposed to constantly scrolling through Instagram and seeing I mean, I tried it for a little while. I tried writing menus, like searching, if I want to use tomato, I search the hashtag tomato, scroll through all the dishes, see what speaks to me. It doesn't inspire me as much as now for my tasting menus. I'm very much so focused on how can it create this whole cohesive thing as opposed to like just a list of dishes that I'm excited about. I write it down I use like the Apple Notes app, super simple. I used to have paper notebooks, nothing crazy. But like what was I doing the other day? I was eating my girlfriend brought home like a ice cream, like drumstick, like the waffle cone covered in nuts thing. And I started to think about how can I create a dish where the last bite is intentionally the best bite. And what does that look like? Like, how do I plate it in a way that there's no other way to get around it, but that last bite that you eat is different, but it still ties in and it's just crazy delicious. I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but I wrote that down in my Apple Notes app in a thing. I have a note called Inspiration Station, and I just jot things down in there as I'm going around.
Let me maybe try and clarify that question because it was kind of articulated not that well. Like with writing it down, it's kind of I'm kind of more asking about the sort of way that you think about the cognitive aspect of it. Like, are you thinking of it in terms of the way that I would see a recipe in like a Martha Stewart cookbook, or do you think of
I understand.
I understand. I know how to make a bisque. This is like done in like this temperature with like this kind of.
So there's a really old cookbook. I'm actually going to get it. Hang on for 1 second.
Okay, no problem.
So this is the deluxe edition of it, but it's super old. Are you familiar with this book?
No.
So it's super old. It's called Le Répertoire de la Cuisine. And it was literally something where, oh shoot, I have a bunch of autographed stuff in here. That's crazy. So yeah, Jacques Pepin did a thing on it, but this is like super old school luxe edition. It has like little tab things for letters. And what this would essentially function as is a resource for like line cooks. Like you would keep this on your station, or if you were a sous chef and you needed a recipe, you would go through and find it in here. But the beauty of this dish or of this book is that there's no like direct recipes in it. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you on the thing here, but it's essentially like it's a list. It's not even. So I'm going to show you. I don't know if it's going to actually. It's back. Okay. Well, it's backwards. So what I'm trying to refer to here is.
Oh, it's mirror for you, but not for me.
Okay. Perfect. So it's this recipe for beans, but it's haricot vert, but American is the recipe for it. And literally the thing that it has written down is cooked with a piece of bacon, cut in dice, mixed together with tomato sauce.
Yeah.
So much of this and like old school French cooking was not about recipes. It was about like, I need you, like I would go to you and you could bounce from kitchen to kitchen to kitchen. And that's why these classic, quote unquote, classic dishes became a thing. Because you know that if you go into a kitchen and someone asks you to create haricot blancs American, you need to know that it means cook with bacon, cut with dice, mixed together with tomato sauce. Mm-hmm. And that's very much so what I think about with recipes. Once you understand those principles, you will look at a recipe again for that first time. That's going to take twice as long, probably the second time and maybe the third time. After that point, if you guys have dishes that you've made multiple times, you probably know this. If I show you, so I think about like a recipe that I've made a bunch of times that has a couple ingredients that I couldn't list off to you right now, but if you gave me the method, I could probably make it. Right. That's ideally the point you want to be at, and that's how I try to write my recipes. And so the like shared Google recipe drive folder that I created that I've been supremely slacking on is very much based on that, where it's like there's a box that has the ingredients and the amounts, and then there's a second section that's 100% method. And that's how I kind of look at recipes, where it's like you could give me all of the quantities, and if you have everything measured out for me, then the other portion is the method. And it's not it's really not that in depth with the method, because once you do it the first time, it should be kind of like self-explanatory from that point. And I should be able to say, whisk egg whites until fluffy, and you kind of like, you know what you're going for. Me and my friend, he has this joke where, you know, if you add cornstarch to something, you cook it until it goes blop blop blop.
Yeah.
Like when you thicken something and it gets to that point. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have like I'm not romantic to a certain aesthetic of a recipe. But those principles of like, you have this you have the recipe method, and then everything that goes into the recipe. Those are the two. And
then I imagine, like, if there's like a twist on like the regular method, like that's the thing that maybe you'd note down either mentally or something.
Sure. But I also think that that's like where the magic is, and that's one of the reasons why like you can't go into a kitchen and ask someone to make a hollandaise anymore, because there's 6 different ways to make a hollandaise. I went to the restaurant in Norway, and there was this big French guy who was like a sous chef at a 3-star in Paris, and he was showing me how to make, like, I started making hollandaise in a double boiler, and he's like, "Why are you doing that?" I was like, "Because like, no, but on the stove." And I'd never seen that before. Like, you like traditionally you can't make hollandaise just on the stove, but he did it, and it was great. And that's how he like, does it go in an ISI gun now? Like, do you foam it up? Like, I don't know. There's just so many. I think it's this era is gone. This era of, you know, like, but you can use these principles of like, we're going to do the dehydrated beet thing, and it can carry over. Is it kind of sad? Yes, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm not. That's a rant for another interview.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something super powerful about that way of thinking, though. I mean, even if it's not like the whatever that is, like 1,000 classical methods that like everybody knows exactly, there's a powerful way of thinking of like, once you understand what a certain sort of high level thing is, if you can sort of pop up from that, then basically like the stuff you can fit in your head is much more like in computer science education. There's a technique called sub-goal labeling. It's basically like, it turns out that it's pretty intuitive, but like if I try to explain a process to you, or if you're trying to remember how something works or whatever, when we're explaining it, if we just sort of label the high level goals, then it's much easier to remember and much easier to understand.
Totally.
It sounds like a really similar thing where like kind of once I get that, like, you know, this is what it means to make a hollandaise, whatever it is with this particular technique, then I can sort of, I don't need to keep all of the sort of steps in my head. I can just think of like, that's one big,
the bigger blocks. Correct.
Yeah.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. The next one is linked up right here for your convenience as part of the playlist. If you like content like this, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on any new videos. And most importantly, I'm known for publishing my own takeaways as part of most of the interviews that I do, but because I did so much blabbing in this interview itself, I would like to know what your takeaways are. Please let me know down low in the comments. Get some color on that like button, and I'll see you in the next video. My name's Justin Khanna. Have a good one.